good morning. Good morning. How are you doing? Robertson County, what is going on, y'all? This is 1100 WSGI. I'm U-Turn Laverne, and this little thing we call One Street Over. And it's Monday. Whew, take a breath. You survived the weekend, and it's time for a brand new week. And I hope you've got just wonderful plans. I was talking to my friend Debbie. Keenan's in the house from the Keenan group. Pull that microphone to you, sweetheart. You know how this works. Get that, and you just look lovely, all in your red and bright. And, you know, people come in here and they're like, "There's a camera," and I'm like, "Yeah, it's you know, this is the age. You gotta let everybody see what's going on, right?" So, but anyway, so you look bright and beautiful this morning, and it's. We got to I was talking to her off mic because we were kind of getting everything set up, and we've got to remember this is Constitution Week. Friday is Constitution Day, Citizenship Day, I think, as well. And this is something that was put in place by President Bush Jr. W. And it was it's one of those things that you're supposed to observe in the schools if you get federal funding. Now, very few people do it. But I love the fact that your little publication here, I'm so proud of you. This is so cool. This is Let's Talk Trash. It's the insert in the newspaper this week. And it is just so cool. It actually came out last week, didn't it? It was in the insert last week. My husband's got one. Yeah, well, because I left it on the table. I was going to bring it, and I thought, well, Debbie will have them. So, yeah, it was last week. It was last week.
On the 7th, right.
Yeah, pull that microphone to you a little bit closer. But I'm
going to eat it.
Yeah, pretty much, pretty much. But so it was in the paper last week, and Dr. Causey and I talked about it. And we had given him, there's a Constitution program called the 917 Project.
Correct.
And so they were handing out, we brought him in cases of the Constitutions and presented them to them on the air last week. Well, he goes, well, the Constitution's in Let's Talk Trash. And I said, well, it just happens that Debbie's going to be in the house on Monday. So he was already plugging it, and he was talking about just... Why don't I shut up and you tell everybody what this is and what it's all about? Because I could sit here and talk about it for a while because it's cool. I love that you did that. So tell everybody what you got here, what all the little extras are in it this time. So, well, Debbie Keenan Group.
Well, thanks. Well, Let's Talk Trash News is a litter education program. Mm-hmm. That's the bottom line. And it's funded by the Sheriff's Department and concerned businesses in Robertson County who want to have a part in the education system to help kids learn good character, good citizenship, personal responsibility, and awareness of their environment and the negative impact litter has on the environment. Now, this particular publication is a 24-page tabloid, and it goes to K through 8th grade students in the entire county. And I believe we drop a bundle off at each high school in their office, just for awareness for right now. But it's full of... If all it had in here was litter, they wouldn't read it.
Right.
Well, they'd read one, maybe the second one, and that'd be it. But what we do, it's kind of like the weekly reader on steroids, if you will.
Yeah.
Except it's a whole lot more, and it's free. So we touch literature, the arts, geography, science. We bring in all of the academia aspects as well, and we include what people really love is a cursive corner.
I just love that you're teaching the kids cursive. This is old school stuff.
Yes,
it really is. And I had somebody say, "Oh, it's an environmental piece." I was like, "No, it's not.
No.
It is in its foundation telling people quit trashing our environment. We're supposed to be good stewards of the planet, y'all." I mean, so many people they try to politicize everything, and it just drives me out of my mind. It's like we all want to be good stewards, but for some reason the left has kind of gotten the whole environmental thing, and it's like no. All of us conservatives want to take care of our planet too, and not that this is a conservative. It is nonpartisan.
No, it's let me share a little bit. In here, there's a story about Vic Scoggins.
Okay.
Now, he swam the Cumberland River almost 700 miles several years ago to bring awareness to the how polluted the river actually
Yeah.
was, and that whole story is in here. And before I get any further, because I want to tell you about the Iris Project,
Okay.
because that raises money for the schools. But in this particular issue, we have an interview with Jerry Criswell, who owns the Veterans Motorplex, the racetrack.
Oh, yeah. Right.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
we have his whole story in here. We did an interview with him, and he has something really cool coming up in October, where it's what do you call it? It's racing to support Down syndrome.
Right.
Okay?
He does that every year, and
Right.
it's a phenomenal program. And I actually got to reach out and get him on
Yes,
because
yes.
he is just a really fun interview too. So.
Yes. Well, just moving back a sec, this particular issue is announcing the Iris Tennessee Robertson Project, which is something that goes into all schools, K through 12th grade schools. And what it is, it's a museum of litter. And Daniel Osley with Springfield High School has agreed to make all these Iris structures. They're all made out of wood. They're 5 feet tall, 3 feet wide, that we take one to every school, and either the art departments or the PTO or students decorate this with found litter. So everybody's becoming aware by an actual art project. And then they can paint it, shellac it, do whatever they want. And one of my mission today is I'm seeking a sponsor or a group of sponsors who will donate the wood that's necessary to make these structures for all the schools. When all of these are done, and on Earth Day in April, they are displayed, and we're still selecting a location here in Robertson County. They'll go on display. It looks like wildflowers in the grass.
Yeah.
And then we have a public auction, which Ed Cope Realty, an auction, is our official auctioneer for the program. And our mission is to raise thousands of dollars that go directly back to the schools. So this is a project where our organization doesn't make anything. We put it on and have 100% of the proceeds go back to the schools. And in Cheatham, we raised $2,250 for the schools over a few projects like this. So,
And it's cool. I can remember when you first started talking to me about this, I thought, okay, that sounds kind of odd.
Yeah.
But you had me come out, and it's been a couple of years ago. I was floored. I mean, I was absolutely floored of what these kids took and then turned it into art projects, and the beauty of it all. And in absolute sculptures that just turned out just amazing. I was floored. But it's just a fun, imaginative way to just say, hey, this stuff needs to be taken care of. You don't need to leave it in the, don't throw your trash out along the road. We had the Indian with the tears, when we were kids, right?
Yes.
So that doesn't work with them anymore. So,
Yeah.
You have to do something else to get their attention. And,
it's
this is great. It's a great program.
It's a project that goes on all year long.
Right.
So it's a constant awareness, and every issue of Let's Talk Trash News, we report the progress and that sort. But when I talk about Let's Talk Trash, that's the main topic. Let's Talk Trash News is the educational component of the program, which is the newspaper, and then the Museum of Litter is the art project that's part of Let's Talk Trash.
Right.
So it's one, they fit together well, but I really need to thank some of our sponsors who have made this possible.
Go ahead and talk about some of those, and then I tell you what, go ahead and talk about some of your sponsors, and we'll take a break, and then we'll come back and we'll put the big appeal on about we need the people to sponsor getting the wood. How much wood are you going to need? Or
I didn't bring my sheet, but it's not a lot. I mean, it might be, from my best recollection, about 22
sheets of plywood.
Yeah, plus
'Cause I'm thinking.
Yeah, it's not a tremendous amount,
Right.
but
kind of a commodity. I mean, it's
to nowadays.
right now.
I know.
It's kind of like, well, you can't always get it. Is the thing too? You can go looking for some stuff.
And
the supply seems a little bit better, but
it doesn't have to be first-rate wood either. So I mean, if they have a plywood sheet, and that they wouldn't use because the end has been warped or whatever, we need that too.
Yeah.
So in order to make these structures.
Okay.
And I would welcome anyone who wants to be a part of the program, because we give a lot of exposure, and it's a year-long exposure.
Yeah.
Now, I mentioned Veterans Motorplex,
Yes.
and they came in when we first came to Robertson County, and we have Guthrie Kitchen and Bath. Even though he's located in Pleasant View, he's just across the county line from Robertson County, and he's coming as a major sponsor. And I'm really excited to thank F&M Bank.
they're always there.
They
just step up all the time.
Yes, they did. And now, moving further, Holman Jewelers. They have a great reputation in this county, and I walked in one day, and Brian's the owner, and I showed it to him, and he says, "I love it. How do I do this?" Yeah, so
I can see that.
Yeah. And then, of course, we have our calendar sponsors. So we have a nice grouping there. We've got the Buzz In Car Wash. We've got Shrum Auto and Salvage.
Yeah, Shrums is another one that they just step up. They sponsored the 9/11 event that I did on Saturday with the veterans and the VFW and the American Legion folks, and just again another one that's just there all the time.
Yeah, and then we have Tina Self. She's with a Village Real Estate. So she popped in real quick, and I really appreciate her. And I've known her for a couple of years. And Bison countertops, now they're in Cheatham County, and Denny Mechanical. But here's the thing, because I'm in 2 counties, they can advertise in both if that's where they want to reach, or they may stay in the county with where they operate. But then we have the Connection, our sponsor, and of course Ebenezer Radio and you.
Hello, that's us.
And we appreciate that more than you know. And the bus man.
The bus man.
Josh Hinnerman.
Oh, yes.
He is.
Love him. He's so much fun.
Yeah.
If you don't know Josh, I've had him on. He came in with Dr. Causey one time. And he is just, we've got such a good school system here. Just a fabulous school system.
You have a fabulous staff.
Yes, we do.
You know, without
they're
that
just
staff.
incredible. And he is so dedicated to transporting our kids and getting them there and just loving on them and making sure that they have everything they need. He's just a real fun guy. He really is interesting.
Well, let me show you something funny, but it's not funny. But if you look through this issue, the front page is beautiful. And when you get to past the calendars, it says for spacious skies.
Yeah,
that's the science section.
Oh, that's so
for
cute.
For amber waves of grain, that's all about wheat. Okay,
so cute.
Turn the page. For purple mountain majesties above the fruited plain, geography.
That's
art.
You're so smart.
And then as you go through, it's the whole song, America, America, God shed his grace on thee. And that's about the Constitution. Notice?
Yep. That's fabulous.
And crown thy good with brotherhood. That's about sports and the wild things. And the last is from sea to shining sea. And we give recipes for kids to make. And this is all about goldfish crackers.
That's so cute. Oh, I love this. Debbie, this is just beautiful.
And Heather comes up with the concept and writing of it. And it's always a surprise to me because I'm working on my stories and she's doing the educational portion of it. So when I finally get her pages, I weave in and out the citizenship, the liter education, and the local stories. So She and I make a great team.
This is so good.
Yeah.
I mean, and you're in 2 different papers right now.
Yeah, we
right?
have Cheatham and we have Robertson.
See.
And we this is Robertson's.
Yeah.
And Cheatham's is using the same base material, but I weave in their local things so that it becomes each county's baby.
Well, see, and I could see this in every one of the Main Street Media papers eventually, but you need more staff. Right? I mean, you could do it. I mean, you could,
let me tell you.
There's a
school in Nashville, and I was asked if I would consider giving them copies. I said, well, how many students do you have? Well, they have 450.
Okay.
So I overprinted a little bit just to see how it works. Now, we're talking Davidson County, okay?
Yeah.
And that's mega, mega, mega.
Yeah.
So they just took them on this past Friday to distribute this week.
So they're using this county is just to kind of see.
I gave Robertson County, so whoever is in this one is getting some nice exposure in one school.
Well, that's
in Davidson County. But I thought, well, let's see how they like it.
Yeah.
Well, I kind of know what's going to happen, so I got to put my PF flyers on. Remember those?
Yes, yes, absolutely, and get ready to work. I love it. Mm-hmm. I love it.
Yeah.
Well, see, and what is I just love it reminds me of the Highlights magazines, and we've mentioned that a lot.
Yes,
that all of us remember going to the doctor and having the little Highlight magazine that we would go through, and maybe it's something I remember more with my children. I don't know if it was really around when we were kids. I can't.
No, we had the weekly reader.
We had the weekly reader, and then Highlights is really our children. I think.
Yeah, Highlights didn't come out until later.
But it's still that same concept, and it's done so beautifully. And I can't wait to share this with my grandson, and and just go through it with him because.
Well, we're also on our Facebook. We have online editions. If they go to
flip book,
if you go to Let's Talk Trash, I have each issue as a flipping book. So. If they'd like to see it online, a teacher can do it online and put it on a whiteboard. We have a nationally known crossword puzzle maker in here. Her name is Jan Buckner, and I believe she's out of Ohio, but she's nationally syndicated, and she loves our publications so much. I'm not going to tell you what we pay for her puzzles, but if it were somewhere else, it would probably be $300 an issue, but she loves us. And she makes it doable because she wants to be part of something that goes into kids' hands like this, that they're actually being taught the right way.
I love it. It's just such a fun concept, and I'm so proud of you, my friend. Debbie she did some work for me on she was the person who got my head out there and got my picture out there when I was running for Congress, and she is a dear friend. So full disclosure there that we are friends. So I love the work that you do, and I've actually got somebody you need to talk to that's running for office. We'll talk about that off mic, but we're going to pause for a second, and I'm going to talk about my friends at Corbin Creek Greenhouse Gifts Nursery and Gardening Center. Mums is the word. They are covered up with mums right now. Here's what you do. You're in the South. You got to have mums on your porch. It's just the law. So you do 2 runs. You get ones right now, and you're like, well, it's too early. It's not October yet. Well, you get 2 runs of mums. You go get your early ones, and you let them, kind of live their life and be beautiful. And then when they start getting a little wilty, you plant them in your yard because they are perennials and they will come back. And I see some houses where they do this very, very well. And it's almost like a quilt of flowers in the fall. It is absolutely gorgeous. And Amy can talk to you about exactly how to do that. And then you get your last run in October, so they're beautiful and bright for all your fall festivities. But do it in 2 runs. Go out. They've got so many mums out there. Absolutely gorgeous stuff at Corbin Creek Greenhouse Gifts Nursery and Gardening Store. And they also are my source for CBD products. It blows my mind that I'm using CBD, but I've been using it a year and a half now, I guess. I'm not 60 years old yet. I've had both of my hips replaced. I have terrible arthritis. It's just part of my life. And my doctor that did my hip replacement, Dr. Jeffrey Hodrick, Southern Joint Replacement up in Nashville, he said, you need to check out CBD. And I was floored because I thought it was snake oil. And he's like, no, it's really good stuff. And so I thought, I didn't know I had so many people try to sell me CBD, I didn't know who to even talk to. Well, 2 days later, Amy is sitting across from me here on the radio, and we're talking farmers market stuff, and she said, oh, we'll have our flowers and our plants, but we'll also have our CBD products, and that's when I found out there is a Robertson County CBD that you can get. Bill grows the plants. That is processed into the oil that they sell at Corbin Creek. So could it work for you? It might. You want to give it a try. If you've got a inflammation issue, if you have trouble sleeping, those are two of the biggest things, but it is phenomenal. The different things, the stories I've heard about people who say, well, I had this little thing going on. I started taking CBD and it's amazing. It's just natural. It's just a gift from God, and it may be a game changer for you. So go talk to him about it. Corbin Creek Greenhouse. They're open Monday through Saturday, 9 to 5, Sunday from 1 to 5. You can call them at 615-384-3185, 615-384-3185. They're at 4920 Highway 161. Go by and see them today, and always please tell them that U-Turn sent you. And my friend Debbie Keenan is in the house from the Keenan Group. Tell them how they can get in touch with you, because I mean, if somebody needs, if you need this kind of stuff, if you need anything printed, she gets the best prices. Oh my goodness, I'm so impressed with you guys. But tell them how to get in touch with you to do business with you, just in general.
Oh, they can email me, DebbieKeenan2010@gmail.com.
And that's Keenan
2010@gmail.com. Or I'm at 615-746-2443.
Do the phone number again. Got to do it twice on radio.
615-746-2443.
Very good. Yes. Good stuff, guys. And whether it be you just need something for anybody, anything that you're publishing. I've got this sticker I need at church, and I'm like, I need to just get Debbie to just print that for me, because
advertising, marketing. We're publishers. We're
everything.
ASI, and printed captions.
Cards,
all kinds
stickers,
of
anything, signs. If you're running for if you're running for Congress. It's so interesting. My congressional opponent who beat me is going to be calling us in a minute. We've got Congressman John Rose. It should be calling us at 7:30. So we got to make sure and wrap it up. Oh, and by the way, in case the phone line doesn't ring, he's got your phone number. Just to let you know, because I'll just tell you. Oh, I give him like a backup cell number, because as we've been, refitting this station, sometimes things don't quite work, and so a couple of times we've had John just on a speakerphone into the microphone. So. The phone's working fine. I've already checked it out.
Okay.
But if you get a random call from the congressman, that's the reason he has your number.
Oh.
I figured it was okay. You're my friend. I didn't want to message you. I didn't want to message you late last night and say, oh, by the way, I gave the congressman your phone number, and then try to explain it at 10 o'clock at night. So anyhow, Debbie Keenan is in the house. And so what are we missing here? What do we need to cover that we haven't covered? We've got about 5 minutes here.
Anyone who wants to jump in and help sponsor the cost of the wood for the Iris project. And like I said, it's not tremendous money. It might be $500,
right,
somewhere in that neighborhood. But if someone who deals in lumber, their costs are going to be lower.
Well, and just the local folks here, if you got some stuff that's maybe a little seconds or something like that they could use. Lee's and Lowe's and all you guys. I'm just saying.
Well, all the ones that, where the stuff is in a warehouse and it got a little wet. And
exactly. You can use that.
Yes.
Because they'll paint it.
Yes.
Because you have to see this stuff. It is so cute.
I don't know. I know you're on Facebook here, but.
Yeah, but.
I don't know if you can even show that.
I don't know if that will show up or not.
I don't know if it will.
Yeah, I mean, for the Facebooks, I'll zoom it in a little bit, but you can kind of, there's just a wood frame, and then they'll come in. Yeah, hold it up there now you got two cameras there, Deb. So you got the one right there, so you can show it to both of them. Show it to one, and then show it to my camera too. There you go. And for those that are just listening terrestrially, go to Facebook. You can go to the WSGI Facebook page, or you can go to my page, Laverne, U-Turn Laverne Vivio, and you can see it there. And my page is public. So that's great. Yes, that showed up really well. But you can see the wood structure if you go on social media and look at it. But you can see the wood structure and then see what they do with it and how it just... It turns into this cool little sculpture art that you can use in your home. You can display in your business and show your community interest and things like that.
What it does is it takes
it's so cute.
litter this ugly and turns it into something beautiful.
Yes. Absolutely. And it's just a reminder to our kiddos to not litter. That's something that really, during the pandemic, whenever, and while we've been going through this, because we're still in the throes of it, because it's just like, but the prisons, they shut them down and wouldn't let them go out and pick up trash. And we did not realize how much we relied on that. And so, it was looking pretty trashy around here. And what blew my mind is that means people have to just throw trash out. And I'm like, who does that? My parents raised me better than to throw my trash out the window.
I call it lazy, obnoxious behavior.
Yes.
That doesn't need to exist.
No, absolutely not. And it's just a shame. But it really brought my attention back to the fact that we got a lot of litter bugs out there. And so you need to cut it out and take care of your planet. It's not a partisan issue. This is a Christian radio station, and I got news for you. The good Lord put us in charge of this planet, and he expects us to take care of it. Period.
Exactly.
Good work, sister.
Thank you.
Good work. I'm going to go ahead and transition out and go ahead and do an ad while I'm waiting for John to call. But if you don't mind hanging out just in case he calls your phone, but I don't think he will. I think we'll be getting his call.
My cell phone?
But yeah, he'll be calling your cell phone. You got your cell phone with you, or is it in the car? Okay. He may call in a minute, but I think he'll call in just a minute. But I'm going to go ahead and kind of officially say bye to my friend Deb and Debbie Keenan with the Keenan Group. Tell them again your phone number and how to get in touch with you in case
I'm
they
at 615-746-2443.
One more time.
615-746-2443.
And their
or
email.
my email is debbiekeenan2010@gmail.com. That's DEBBIEKEENAN 2010@gmail.com.
And she's great. Anything you need. And we'll go ahead and say bye, but you can kind of hang for just a minute while I go ahead and do my next ad. And we wait to see if we're going to hear from our congressman. If for some reason he doesn't call you and I can just visit, we can just catch up. And I'm sure that would be entertaining, y'all. You just never know. You never know. When my friends come in and we just chit chat, it gets real interesting very quickly. But we are waiting on a call from Congressman John Rose. And while we're waiting on his phone call, we'll talk about Barry and Rebecca Richards. They are with the Exit Realty Garden Gate team, good friends of mine, and somebody that if you're trying to buy or sell property right now, if you're doing anything in the real estate market, you got to have a good team. You got to have somebody, no matter whether you're buying or selling. You need somebody on either side of that table. If you're buying, they're going to tell you get pre-qualified or you don't even start looking, and also how much money can you bring to the table to sweeten the deal, because it's time right now that up here in Robertson County, people are coming in and bidding for properties, and then they're saying, well, I'll give you this much more, this much over the asking price, because it turns into a bidding war. It's amazing. It's a weird time, but you got to have a good team no matter what side of the table you're on. And Barry comes to the team as a marketer. He was a marketer in Nashville, a vice president of a marketing company for many, many years, and he went full-time with real estate a few years ago. Rebecca's one of the first in the area to be a senior real estate specialist. So no matter what you're looking for, buying or selling, you have got a great team. They're up in Cross Plains. They're here in Robertson County. They specialize in Robertson County, but they also buy and sell in the surrounding counties and across the state line up in Kentucky. So whatever your needs may be, get in touch with them today. You can connect with them at sellwithbecky.com, sellwithbecky.com, or by BUYRobertsonCounty.com. When you get in touch with them, always please tell them that U-Turn sent you. And with that said, we're going to just kind of keep waiting around here to see if John gives us a call. He's supposed to call us right at 7:30. And John Rose has been, of course, we haven't had him in studio. He's been, when he communicates with us, doing it via phone, and that's fine. But we are anxious to kind of get him in studio sometime and just to kind of see if what's going on there. But we do appreciate all the work that he is doing for our county. And also, too, I've got a lot of questions for him. If you have questions, he hasn't called yet, Deb, so just hang tight. So, because if he doesn't come in, then that means I just have to run my mouth, which I can do, but, anyway. But the big question that I have for John, and if you have questions for John, please put them up in comments and we'll get them to you. But the big thing I want to know is an update on what's going on in Afghanistan. Because we still have people that are stranded over there, and we need to get them out. So, looking to see what's going on with the update there, because word has it that the State Department's getting in the way, and I don't understand it. So we do have some questions, for him in regards to what's happening in Afghanistan. And we also want to talk to him too a little bit. This is a question that I hadn't really paid attention to whether or not he was part of the Freedom Caucus. And the Freedom Caucus, right? You know who that's Jim Jordan and those guys. They're very much you go ahead and get on your mic if you want to. Are you good to kind of hang with me?
Sure.
Okay. Because he ain't calling at 7:30, so we'll see. But Jim Jordan is somebody who I just highly regard, and that's one of the things. One of my platform positions whenever I was running for Congress is if I get a chance to go to Washington, I'm going to be a part of the Freedom Caucus because they're ones that are, okay, he's calling, but let's see here. Let's see if I can get this over here. Hang on, John. We're getting it. So,
call from
John Rose.
Rose.
There we go. Hey, John, how are you doing?
Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing excellent. I'm sitting here talking to my friend Debbie Keenan with the Keenan Group. I don't know if you've ever met her, but we're going to go ahead and let her go since she is wrapping up and that you're on the phone with us. But thank you again, Deb, for being a part of it. And so we were just sitting here talking about that you were getting ready to call us and going to get an update. And we really want to start with probably and good morning, sir. How are you doing? I'm sorry, I'd already kind of started the conversation without you. So officially, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. It's a pleasure to be with you.
And so where are you today? Are you in Cookeville or are you in Washington?
I am starting out the morning in Cookeville, and unfortunately, a little bit later this morning, I say unfortunately, I guess I shouldn't say it that way, but later this morning, I'm going to be working on my committee, the Financial Services Committee, for a markup of the budget reconciliation proposal that is coming before the House in the next 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah, I say unfortunately because it's it's a mess, isn't it, sir?
It is, and I would say to everyone listening, and have been saying as I visited with people across the district in the last couple of weeks, not this week necessarily, but the 3 or 4 weeks following, I think have the potential to be 3 or 4 of the worst weeks in American history, I fear, because the Democrats seem determined to take us down this path of socialism, and it will likely happen here in the latter part of September, early October.
Well, in the House is what you're talking about, but now we still have the Senate that has been holding on and keeping us from going down the abyss, I would say. Do you still find, and I understand the concern when it comes to what's happening in the Congress, and I can't imagine how frustrating it must be from your perspective. But do you still feel like that the Senate will be there to put up the roadblock for us? What are your feelings on that?
Well, I'm hopeful about that. Obviously we hear that both Senator Kirsten Sinema from Arizona and Senator Joe Manchin from West Virginia have both made statements that appear to be encouraging. In the case of Sinema, she said she won't support a $3.5 trillion reconciliation proposal or this socialism proposal. And Manchin has made a whole list of things that he doesn't like about it, including the price tag, and so they've been throwing out numbers like $1 to $1.5 trillion, which is still an awesome sum, and a further mortgaging of our children's future. And so I hope they hold the line. I will tell you, and maybe I mentioned this to you when we visited a month ago or so, or a few weeks ago, just before the House left for the August district period back in late July, the House Republican Study Committee had a visit from Senator Ted Cruz from Texas, and he was not optimistic that those two would hold up in the end. He thinks they will end up folding. And certainly we have the vivid illustration from just 3 weeks ago when we were back in Washington and the House was there to set the stage or begin the voting, I guess, to move all this stuff down the line. And we were told there were going to be these moderates, and you may remember there was a lot of reporting in the news that this group of moderates were going to stand up to Pelosi and stop her. And for a few hours on the 23rd of August. It looked like that was going to happen, but then ultimately they just capitulated and gave her everything she wanted. And as we've discussed in the past, usually a few of them cross the line and vote with us, 2 or 3, whatever can, without losing the vote. Some of the more moderate members, you might say, but if that's an apt description, but they all folded, and they 100% of them voted with the Democratic majority to move this reconciliation bill forward, to move the $1.2 trillion infrastructure bill forward, and this $3.5 trillion. And so it causes you to not be optimistic that this will really happen.
It is disheartening, and I guess I just keep hoping against hope. And I had not heard that Ted Cruz had not thought that the two would hold up in the Senate. But I keep thinking about, don't they realize there's an election coming? But if they get everything that they want in this package, there's all kinds of does this package have the voting restrictions or guidelines that they're wanting to put out from a federal level in it? I can't remember if this one does.
Well, it at this point does not. HR 1, okay. Senate 1. Okay. However, Cruz speculated that he thinks they will try to put that in.
Yeah.
So the thing that has saved us historically there is that it appears it would be the case again this time, is that the Senate parliamentarian, and this gets way into the weeds of how the Senate operates, but the Senate parliamentarian has ruled extraneous matters like that don't really have anything to do with the budget per se as not being qualified to be included in this process called reconciliation. He thinks that the Democrats will probably ignore that ultimately. He thinks that the chair of the presiding officer, in this case Majority Leader Schumer, will just rule that those things can be included and that they will try to include them, and then they will just overrule the parliamentarian and do it anyway. It remains to be seen if that will happen. Of course, Manchin and Sinema have both said they wouldn't go along with that, and that would be enough to stop anything because, of course, they have to have their votes to pass. With a simple majority, they need every Democratic vote plus the 2 independents that are in the Senate in order to get anything done. And so you would think that they would probably, those 2 will have to go along. He thinks they will in the end. He thinks that Schumer will twist their arms and that they'll end up capitulating. It's
incredible. I just don't. We're praying. That's what I tell everybody. Because I have a lot of people ask me because they know I ran for Congress, and I said, here's the thing. John won. It's his responsibility, and it's you've got Bobby Davis that preaches out there at Life Church, and I heard this from him, and I just love it because he said, if it's not within your ability to affect it or control it, then it's not your responsibility to give it to God. And so a lot of us back here in the communities, we're going, okay, there's nothing I can do right now except working to, just like I had Debbie in here, we're talking about educating our kids. The Constitution is in this Let's Talk Trash publication that's in our newspapers right now, and this is Constitution Week. Constitution Day is on Friday. That's what we're concentrating on. We're concentrating on doing the work we should have been doing, so we couldn't have let this happen. And so that's where we're putting our energies, because we look at Washington and we just have to turn it off. Because we know at this moment there's nothing we can do, but God bless you, there's something you can do, and that's just keep banging the drum and making as much noise as you possibly can and reminding them that the Constitution matters. Do you know who Joni Haynes is? She's with the 917 Project. Have you met her?
Yes, I have, yes.
She mentioned that she went into Representative Cooper's office, and whenever she was first getting interested in this, and she was like, oh, look at this idea. I want to put constitutions in. This is several years ago. I want to put constitutions in the hands of our 8th graders. And he said to her, nobody cares about the Constitution. And she said to him, well, didn't you swear to uphold it? And so that's what we're trying to do locally, because that's within our control and our responsibility. But for you, it's a little bit bigger burden down there in Washington. So what can we do to help? I guess is the question. What do you need from us?
Well, I think always. I know from your prayers, no question about
absolutely.
it, are helpful and useful. And I think this is a time when we all should be praying for the future of our country and for guidance and leadership. And I know I think you believe this way as well. God puts us in these situations
Yep.
to send us a message,
You
and so
bet.
I think He's sending us a strong message that this country needs to turn, and we need to repent of our sinful ways, and we need to turn back to God.
Amen.
And so I think that that at the end of the day, if we will be faithful servants to Him, then His will be done, and it may not be done in the way that we hope it will, or expect it will, or wish it would, but it's His perfect plan, and it will lead to the homecoming that He planned for us all. So I think that comes first. Always, it should come first. Is that we all should be searching for, the fulfillment in our own lives of answering the call and accepting the gift that God has given us. Right?
Amen.
Eternal life and the beauty of this perfect sacrifice of His Son Jesus Christ. And so I think those are the top priorities. And I think as sometimes we think it's all in our hands and we have to solve it all. And I don't think God wants us to just lay down and not stand up and fight. I think He wants us to do what we're supposed to do and be active and involved and engaged. But I think that we need to trust in Him and be praying. So prayer is number one. Number two, I would say people need to stay informed. They need to listen. They need to be getting themselves educated. And in this time frame when there's so much bad information out there and you can't just go to one news source, one trusted source, I think people need to be making a real concerted effort to educate themselves and understand about the issues and be informed. And then we need to be ready to win the election. I think that has to be very top of our list, that we need to be thinking forward about that, preparing for those elections, making sure that we can win back majorities in the House and Senate. And everyone needs to understand, though, that doesn't mean that we'll be able to immediately turn everything around. I mean, President Biden's the president, assuming he makes it through this 4-year term and is able to function through it at some level.
Yeah.
He'll be the president for another more than 3 years now, and we've got to be prepared to win back the White House in 2024 and then start to reclaim this country, hopefully. What winning next fall will do, though, is it will allow us to play effective defense. So if we controlled either house of Congress, and assuming all Republicans would stick together and do what they should, we could stop all of this, at least the legislative agenda that you see the Democratic Party advancing. And we understand, I think it's put in crystal terms, that it matters who governs.
Yeah, and it's just something you said that just kind of stopped my heart for a second when you said three years still with Biden, and it's been a long year, brother. It doesn't seem possible that he's on, because I mean, the views and opinions expressed on this program are my own and do not necessarily express the views and ownership of this radio station. I am a Republican, but I'm more of a patriot. I tell everybody I'm not real keen on either party. I just want my country back, and I do not believe for a minute that the man that's sitting in the White House right now is doing that job, and I want us to regain the House next fall at the very least. I mean, are you, give us some hope here, John? What is the projection? Do we see some seats that look like they're going to be vulnerable? I mean, as we're projecting forward, what's your gut telling you? Because you watch that stuff pretty close, I know.
Right. So I will tell you that the kind of deep polling that Republicans are doing, and the Democrats know this too, would point to us retaking the House and retaking the Senate. But of course, we're still roughly 14 months out from Election Day, a little less than 14 months out. So that's an eternity in politics, as you know. A lot can change, and hopefully things will stay and maybe even get better. The conditions may even get better for winning back the House and winning back the Senate. So that's good. But we can't take that for granted. We've got to continue to work hard every day. We do have redistricting that's going to happen all across the country, including here in Tennessee. And so, frankly, the Democrats are always trying new things. So one of the things they did to us 2 years ago and 2 and 4 years ago, and frankly, 10 years ago during redistricting, is they were prepared to fight and proactively go out and fight the redistricting plans. And so that's why they're in control in the House right now. Mm-hmm. The gains that they made in the courts over the last decade is what has given them the majority that they have. So as you'll recall hearing, they got North Carolina, forced North Carolina to redistrict. They forced Pennsylvania to redistrict by fighting and challenging the redistricting plans of those 2 states in the courts and other places around the country, but those 2 in particular. And just the seats that they picked up in Pennsylvania and North Carolina account for their majority today. So we've got to be prepared to defend the redistricting plans. We've got to encourage our state legislatures that we control across the country. And we had the advantage 10 years ago. We're going to have the advantage there again this time, but we've got to be smart about it. And we can't put forward redistricting plans that we're not prepared to defend in court. We have to expect the Democrats are going to challenge them. We have to be prepared to challenge their redistricting plans in states. And I hate that that's the case, because I think that's not the instinct of us, we as Republicans, is not to run to court every time something happens that we don't like and try to get the courts to overrule what the people's elected representatives have done. But the Democrats have become very effective at doing that. They do it all the time. And we've got to give them back their own medicine. And of course, we've made some gains on this side of the federal court system in the meantime that President Trump delivered for us, of giving us, judges there. And we see the early gains, for example, with respect to the new, pro-life laws in Texas that are being upheld by the Supreme Court right now. So we've just got to be prepared to fight, and I think we've put in place, organizations to help on the legal front. So those are things that we need to be doing. But ultimately, it comes down to Republicans coming out to vote. And I know it's easy to get discouraged. It's easy to get frustrated with your Republican officials across the country, and then do what happened in Georgia, where we saw too many people throw up their hands and say, "I'm not going back to vote because I don't trust the process." Well, when you don't show up, that is voting too. You're voting with your absence. And we handed the United States Senate. The truth is, Georgia Republicans handed the United States Senate to the Democrats by not coming back to vote. Yep. And they were frustrated, and I understand that. But the implications when we don't show up is that we forfeit the game to the other side. We forfeit the country, the republic, freedom, liberty to the other side. And so when Ronald Reagan talked about, freedom is not passed on in the bloodstream to our children, we have to teach them to fight for it. And this is the time when we have to stand up and fight.
You bet. And well said, brother. I appreciate it. And that's what kind of coming back around to where I was talking about what our responsibilities are. All of us locally, we're doubling down on getting back into the schools and making sure that we have an influence on these young kids. And we have it easy here in Robertson County because, we're conservative across the board, but we got a lot of more liberal-minded people coming in who I love. They're friends of mine, but don't bring your liberal politics in here. The reason why you want to be here is because we are a conservative county. You want what we got because we're conservative and we're free. So we're just trying to continue with that education, and so that's what we're working on doing now. Something else that I'm wondering if you think this might help, and I'm thinking it would, is if we absolutely flood Manchin and the senators with not vitriol, but letters that tell them your story. Tell them your American story and why you want this republic protected. If we sent sincere, kind, letters that godly people write to Manchin and Sinema, it might help. It might help them hold the line. in the Senate? I don't know. What do you think?
I think it always helps.
Right.
I mean, we take note of that when I hear from people, and and so I do think what you said is right. You want to be respectful. You want to, you don't want to. It's easy to get over our skis and say, we'll make sure you never get elected again,
Exactly.
and things like that,
Doesn't
that
help.
we can't deliver on.
Right.
So I think making a more logical, earnest plea to these folks, I think that's going to resonate more than trying to call them bad names or
Exactly.
threaten them in some way or threaten their political future in some way. But they understand that's what, they understand that if they're not following the will of the people, then their future will be in question. And so I think it's just a matter of trying to convince them and make the solid arguments that we have for why they should vote. And obviously we can see that they already appear predisposed to question what's coming. Mm-hmm. And I think that for goodness sakes, the economic data, the polling data, just the examples that we can see of how the world and Americans and our economy and business and industry have reacted to the policies of Joe Biden just in this last 8-9 months, I think should illustrate to them that they're headed in the wrong direction and they're on the wrong team. And the president's approval ratings are underwater now, which they should be. Mm-hmm. I think what we see is a big case of buyer's remorse by the American voter for this president. And you asked earlier about the hopefulness. The polling data shows that swing voters, particularly suburban men and women, that so often are the voters that kind of swing the election back and forth. They are upset with Biden because he's not doing what he promised to do. He told us a year ago that he would unite us, that he would turn down the rhetoric, that he would bring us back together, that he'd restore confidence and faith in this country among foreign leaders, et cetera. He's done exactly the opposite. As we know, this just humiliating, embarrassing withdrawal from Afghanistan, retreat from Afghanistan, has cost us the support of our most steadfast allies all around the world, because they see a weak America and they need a strong America. They want to see a strong America. And so the president is giving them just the opposite. Mm-hmm.
And with that said, there's a couple of things we got to cover too. Now, Jerry Southergirl has put up a question wanting to know if there's proof of extensive voter fraud and can it be prevented in the future. That's a question that came up on comments. I got to take a break real quick, John, but Congressman John Rose is with us, but that was a question that came in from Jerry just a second ago. But I really need some kind of an update about Afghanistan. And I promised everybody I was going to ask you about the Freedom Caucus, because that's something that I follow and that I really love what they do, and would like for you to address, if why you're not a member of the Freedom Caucus. And I even, I mentioned that to you. And so a lot to cover. So let me very quickly talk about Reiselman Buick GMC. We talk about how that they are just such a great dealership. They've got a full service dealership. They get in the pre-owned stuff that's certified pre-owned, some things that come in low miles to where you can still get warranty on that. And then they've got the warranty department to back all that up. They've got a warranty department, or they've got a service department to back up all that warranty protection. And they're open every single day that the dealership is open. Their hours vary, but this is a full service dealership. Now, when it comes to looking at the pre-owned lot and the different things that they have coming in on the pre-owned lot, they sent me a couple of listings. They got a 2019 GMC Sierra that they've gotten in, a 2019 Ram 1500, always looking for those great pre-owned vehicles that sometimes maybe you'll have some factory warranty left on it, or they can certify it pre-owned. But new cars, of course, new vehicles, I should say, they don't really carry the sedan car anymore. It's more trucks, SUV, and sports utilities. And that's why Reiselman Buick GMC, it's still one of those places, even though the inventory is really wonky right now because of the pandemic, they're still, the vehicles that the Buick and GMC make are still being produced at a high rate because that's what people want. So it's just changed the way we do purchasing when it comes to buying a new vehicle. If you're somebody that likes to trade every few years, Todd says, just anticipate that and come in and order what you want. That way you get the color, you get the package, everything that you want. And it'll be, when it comes off the truck, it's yours. It's just kind of changed the way things look, but they're still doing record-breaking sales, and they're a great dealership, great bunch of folks to work with. Reiselman Buick GMC. They're located at 2516 Memorial Boulevard. You can call them at 615-384-3559, 615-384-3559. Monday through Friday, they're open 8 a.m. until 7:30 p.m., Saturday, 8 a.m. until 6 p.m. And again, they have some service hours open every single day that they're open. Go by and check them out. ReiselmanBuickGMC.com. Get all the info that you need from them there and tell them that U-Turn sent you. And as always, when we get back into the show here, we want to just thank you again, John, for taking the time to talk to us. Congressman John Rose is on the air with us. And where do you want to start with those things that I asked you about when we were kind of unpacking? What do you want to start with as we get back into the show?
Well, so I'll talk about the Freedom Caucus issue, okay. I guess, first, and say I am not a member of the Freedom Caucus. In fact, in the last Congress, in the 116th Congress, I really only joined one of the caucuses, and that was the pro-life caucus, which is just a fundamental belief of mine that we need to protect life. After being there for 2 years and kind of studying, how the caucuses function, I decided to, on a kind of selective basis, start joining some of the caucuses. In many cases, because of the information that I get access to by being member of various caucuses out there, and there are literally hundreds of them, and I was kind of skeptical about it, but I ultimately decided that a number of them, by being a member, you get information. And the same is true of the Freedom Caucus. The reason that I've kind of stopped short of, and what I would say to your listeners is I vote with the Freedom Caucus the vast majority of the time, probably more so than many of the members, the current members of the Freedom Caucus. Okay. I vote with the bulk of them. What has caused me not to join the Freedom Caucus is that I want to see us stay together as Republicans, and so I'm fearful that if I get into one of these caucuses where they kind of expect you to vote as a block, they don't always do it, that then I won't be free to vote what I think the people of the 6th District want me to do. And so that's caused me, when it comes to caucuses like the Freedom Caucus, where they kind of expect you to vote with them, if they decide as a group. So, for example, early on, U-Turn, I studied the Problem Solvers Caucus, and some people have heard about this. This is a group that's half Democrats, half Republicans, and I thought, okay, I hear a lot of people say across the district they want to see me looking for ways to persuade the other side, to find compromise, etc. And so I thought about joining the Problem Solvers Caucus, but then when I learned that if 75% of the Problem Solvers Caucus decides they feel a certain way, they expect you to vote with the whole group, to kind of vote in mass. And I was like, I can't do that. I came here to represent the people of the 6th District of Tennessee. I can't give away my vote to a group of other people and say, I'll vote however you tell me to, even if I think that it might be a laudable effort that they're undertaking to try to find common ground. And that's proven to be the right choice, because far too often the the Problem Solvers Caucus has been a group that I just couldn't vote with them and feel like I was doing my job. So that's really what underlies it. I know the people in the Freedom Caucus. They are some of my best friends. I talk to them regularly, and so I would just assure people that if when our values here in Tennessee coincide with what the Freedom Caucus is doing, then you can expect to see me voting that way, and almost the overwhelming majority of the time. I got the highest rating that the American Conservative Union gives out. I have a 99% lifetime rating with some of the other groups. I won't mention names, but that keep up with conservative voting records. So I will just assure the voters that I'm representing the values the current 6th District of Tennessee, I think, and working hard to do that. And that's why it matters then that you also share with me, both through email and phone calls and letters and on social media, share with me what's on your mind. And it's helpful when folks post on social media. I know, I don't want to, if people don't want to participate there, I understand, but we sometimes get overwhelmed by the liberal voices that are out there on social media that are trolling our sites and just, overwhelming us. And you know what I'm talking about.
Oh, yeah.
Kern. So that's what I would say about the Freedom Caucus issue, and happy to answer other questions about that before we move on.
And I got to tell you, we're out of time, brother. I'm sitting here looking,
okay.
and I wish we had more time. We could have definitely done an hour today. And a lot of the things with Afghanistan, we know that the just keep praying for those folks, guys, that are stranded over there. And if you have some time, maybe later this month, maybe we'll get you back on again. I'll call your office and see, because we left a few things hanging, didn't get to Jerry's question either. But we appreciate you, brother. You're doing a good job, and we are praying for you.
Thank you, and it's a privilege to represent the people of the 6th District of Tennessee.
Thank you. Say hello to Chelsea and the boys for us. God bless you.
Yes, you turn, and thank you.
Thank you. And this is 1100 WSGI. God bless. Have a wonderful day.